Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we break down the best productivity and marketing books that can drive change in your work and personal life. I'm your host, Andrew Murray, and today we're diving into the insights behind Hooked, How to Build Habit-Forming Products by Nir Eyal. Now, this book explores the psychology behind why certain products captivate us, control us, and keep us coming back for more. So from both the consumer perspective and the perspective as a marketer, this stuff is absolutely fascinating. One of the most significant concepts that he introduces is the hook model, which outlines a four-step process: trigger, action, variable reward that companies can use to create products that control us and force user habits. So if you want to get better at using this stuff as a marketing tool, or to be more resistant to being influenced by companies that are using this on you, you have to check out our discussion. Don't forget to drop a comment and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get started. Take it away, guys. Tell me about your insights on Hooked. What really got you excited about this book?
All right, so we're diving deep into Nir Eyal's Hooked. And I know you're probably thinking,
Hooked on habits.
exactly, Hooked, how to build habit-forming products.
That's the one.
And it can feel a little intimidating, right? Like there's so much packed into this book. Where do you even begin?
Yeah, you don't want to just skim the surface you want.
You want the good stuff, the
Yeah.
insights that'll actually make a difference. And trust me, there's a lot to unpack here.
It's not just for product designers either.
No, not at all. Hooked is like this secret decoder ring for
Yeah.
understanding human behavior, why we do the things we do, especially when it comes to the products and services that, let's face it.
Have us totally hooked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's our mission today, to pull out the most impactful ideas from Hooked, the stuff you can actually use, whether you're building the next big thing or just trying to understand your own tech habits a little better.
We'll dig into some real world examples too, see how these principles play out in the wild.
All right, let's start with the heart of it all, the hook model.
The foundation.
Exactly. Eyal lays out these 4 stages that explain how products hook us, and it's like a cycle, this beautiful, kind of scary, but ultimately fascinating cycle.
And we've all been through it probably multiple times a day without even realizing it.
So true. The first stage is the trigger, which is what gets us to take action. And Eyal breaks this down further.
Then to external triggers, like those pesky notifications we all know and love, and then there are the internal triggers.
Those are the sneaky ones.
Ones we don't always see coming.
Like, I was reading about internal triggers, and it made me think about my own Instagram habit. I always thought it was those little notification badges that were pulling me in, but then I realized
It's often deeper than that.
it's like I'm bored or feeling a little lonely, or maybe I just want to procrastinate on something, and boom.
There's that urge to check Instagram.
Like, those feelings are the trigger, not the notification itself. It's kind of freaky when you think about it.
It is, and Hooked dives into how companies can tap into those feelings of uncertainty or boredom or FOMO to really make their products irresistible.
It's like they're offering a quick fix for something deeper, which might not always be the healthiest approach.
Not always, but it's effective.
So we've got that trigger, whether it's external or internal, and that leads us to the second stage, action.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Gotta do something.
And Eyal really emphasizes how crucial it is to make this action as frictionless as possible.
The easier it is to do, the more likely we are to do it.
Human nature right there.
And it's so true. Like, I remember this one time I was working on a project, a big one, and I was totally stuck.
Staring at that blank page.
Yep, just frozen.
Ah.
And then I remembered what Eyal said about reducing friction, so I decided to break the project down into these tiny, manageable steps.
So instead of one giant, overwhelming task.
Exactly. And it totally worked. Suddenly I was making progress and feeling good about it.
That's the power of understanding these principles. They can apply beyond just products, too.
To our everyday lives.
To getting things done. So true. Okay, we've got the trigger, the action. What keeps us coming back for more? Eyal says it's all about the reward.
But not just any reward.
It's got to be special.
A variable reward.
Which means
Think about it. What's more exciting? Getting the same predictable reward every single time.
boring.
Or the possibility of a surprise.
Ooh, definitely the surprise. It's like those cereal boxes when we were kids, the ones with the toys inside.
You never knew what you were going to get.
It was like Christmas morning every time.
And that unpredictability kept you coming back for more.
I would beg my mom to buy that cereal, even if I hated the actual cereal.
It's the same psychology behind slot machines.
You pull that lever, hoping for the big jackpot, but even those small wins.
They keep you hooked.
And Hooked breaks down how So many products use this same principle, like social media feeds.
You scroll and scroll and scroll, never knowing what's going to pop up next.
It could be a funny video or friends' vacation photos, or
Breaking news.
you're constantly being surprised, which keeps you engaged. That's the variable reward in action.
And Eyal doesn't stop there. He gets even deeper into the different types of variable rewards that really hook us.
Like rewards that tap into our need for social connection.
The need to belong.
Or the satisfaction of discovering something new.
I feel like I'm always on a quest for new knowledge, even if it's just random trivia.
You're a hunter-gatherer of information.
That's me. And it's so interesting to think about how those different rewards, those different motivations, play a role in what we do online.
It's not just one size fits all. There's a lot of nuance.
Okay, we've got the trigger, the action, the potentially awesome but unpredictable reward. What's the final piece of this habit-forming puzzle?
Investment. The final stage is all about investment, getting users to put something of themselves into the product, whether it's time, data, effort, or even money.
It's like those loyalty programs where you rack up points for every purchase.
Right. But Eyal goes deeper than that. He talks about how investing any of those things increases our attachment to a product or service.
It makes it harder to walk away.
Think about creating a playlist on Spotify.
It takes so much time and effort to curate the perfect playlist.
Yeah.
And then it's yours. You've created something.
And you invested.
Or what about those online communities where people are constantly contributing their knowledge and expertise? It's like you become part of something.
You build relationships.
It's like that feeling you get when you finally finish assembling a piece of IKEA furniture.
You put in all that work, all that effort.
And you love it even more because of it.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that this investment phase often sets the stage for the next trigger, completing the cycle.
So it's not just a linear process, it's a loop.
Our investments keep us hooked, keep us coming back for more.
Are you sick of not being able to create habits that stick? Well, meet Atoms, the habit tracking app from the team behind Atomic Habits that actually makes building good habits that stick. And that's really the remarkable thing about Atomic Habits. No endless features you'll never use, no complicated charts, just the own core tools that James Clear used to write his best-selling book and build his own habits. You can track up to 3 habits for free with the app. It's available on Android and iOS. I love how Adam sends me a simple daily reminder. Did you do your 1% better today? Because that's what it's all about. Tiny changes, remarkable results. You can try Atoms for free for 30 days and see why over 100,000 people are building better habits, one atomic change at a time. Check out the link for the description. Now, back to the show.
So we've covered the 4 stages of the hook model. But what really makes Hooked stand out is that Eyal doesn't just describe the problem. He actually offers solutions.
For creators and consumers.
And that's what we'll be diving into next. We'll explore how these principles can be used for good and bad.
And how we can use this knowledge to become more conscious users, maybe even creators.
Stay tuned, because things are about to get really interesting.
It's all downhill from here.
In the best way possible, of course.
Of course. Welcome back to our deep dive into Nir Eyal's Hooked. Now that we've got the basics of the hook model, those 4 stages.
Trigger, action reward, investment.
Exactly. It's time to see how these principles actually play out in the products and services we use every day.
You know, it's kind of scary how once you know the hook model, you start seeing it everywhere.
It's like a hidden code has been cracked.
Right. And one of the most obvious examples, at least to me, is TikTok.
Oh yeah, TikTok's a masterclass in hooking users.
Those short, addictive videos.
It's like they're engineered to hijack our brains.
I'll admit I've lost hours, maybe even days, scrolling through that app.
The algorithm's so good at figuring out what you like, you just keep watching and watching and watching.
And the videos are so short, you get that quick hit of dopamine, and then you're on to the next one.
It's that variable reward in action. You never know what's coming next, so you just keep swiping.
And it's not just the algorithm, it's the social aspect too. The more you use TikTok, the more likely your friends are to get hooked.
It creates this network effect, a chain reaction of engagement.
It's brilliant from a product design standpoint, but kind of scary when you think about it.
Definitely. And it's not just TikTok, right? Think about email.
Email is a classic example.
I remember when email was a novelty. You'd check it once a day, maybe twice.
Now, forget about it. I'm constantly refreshing my inbox, checking for new messages, even when I know there's nothing important.
It's become this Pavlovian response.
You see that notification badge.
Yeah.
And you just got to click it.
Even if it's just spam, there's still that tiny hit of anticipation.
Maybe it's something good.
Maybe it's something important.
And then you've invested so much time in email. Organizing your inbox, setting up filters.
It's become this essential part of your life.
You can't imagine functioning without it.
Now let's flip the script a bit. Let's talk about products that use the hook model for, let's say, more positive ends.
Like fitness trackers.
Exactly, like Fitbit or MyFitnessPal. They've managed to tap into these same principles, but to promote healthier behaviors.
I never thought I'd be the type of person to wear a fitness tracker, but then I got one as a gift.
Yeah.
And it totally changed my habits. Seeing my steps tracked, getting those little badges for hitting my goals, it was surprisingly motivating.
It's all about those variable rewards and that sense of progress.
And the investment, too. You start setting goals, tracking your progress, maybe even joining challenges with friends.
It's fascinating how these same principles can be used to create both healthy and unhealthy habits.
It all comes down to intention, right? Are the creators of these products trying to help people or just exploit them?
That's the million-dollar question.
Okay, we've talked about social media, email, fitness trackers.
Yeah.
But what about those products that we don't always think of as habit forming in the traditional sense?
Like cloud storage.
Yeah, good example. It's not something we interact with constantly.
But it becomes this essential part of our digital lives.
Our photos, our documents, our memories are all stored there,
And they often have features that encourage collaboration.
like shared folders or real-time editing.
The more we use these features, the more reliant we become on the platform.
It's almost like they become part of our digital infrastructure.
And that makes it really hard to switch, even if a competitor comes along with a better offer.
Speaking of the dark side of the hook model, we have to talk about mobile games.
Oh, the ones with those in-app purchases.
I've definitely fallen into that trap before.
It's easy to do. These games are designed to be incredibly addictive.
You get a little taste of success, and then you want more and more and more.
And before you know it,
You spent way too much money on virtual items that don't even exist in the real world.
it's crazy.
And then there's the social pressure, the competition with friends, the ability to buy virtual gifts for other players.
It all adds up to this really powerful incentive to keep spending.
And then there are those games where you have to wait hours for something to build or regenerate, but you can speed up the process by spending real money.
They're playing on our impatience.
I hate that, but it works.
Oh, it definitely works. Mobile gaming is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
It's a reminder that we need to be aware of these tactics, these psychological tricks that are being used to keep us hooked.
Absolutely. We need to be critical thinkers, not just passive consumers.
So we've seen how the hook model can be used for good and bad, how it shapes our interactions with everything from social media to fitness trackers to mobile games.
But what about applying these principles to our own lives? Can we use the hook model to break bad habits and build good ones?
That's a great question, and it's one we'll be exploring next.
Get ready to hack your own habits.
Okay, so we've gone deep into Nir Eyal's Hooked. We've seen how companies use the hook model to, well,
It hook us.
exactly. But now let's flip the script and see how we can use these same principles to take control of our own habits.
Because that's the real power of this book. It's not just about analyzing products, it's about understanding ourselves.
So let's say I've got a bad habit I want to break. Where do I even start?
The first step is always awareness. Got to shine a light on that habit.
See it for what it really is.
Exactly. And then try to break it down using the hook model.
So figure out what triggers the habit, what action I keep repeating, what reward I'm getting, and what investments I've already made.
It's like a detective investigation, but for your own brain.
And then once I know my triggers, I can start to avoid them.
Or replace them with healthier alternatives.
Like I used to be a total night owl. I'd stay up way too late even when I knew I had to be up early the next morning.
Sounds familiar.
And reading Hooked helped me realize that my trigger was actually finishing work.
Ah, that end of day feeling.
Yeah, my brain associated stopping work with like finally being able to relax and unwind, which usually meant staying up late.
So it was an internal trigger, not something external like a notification or an alarm.
Exactly. And once I realized that, I started to create new end-of-day rituals that didn't involve staying up late, like taking a walk, reading a book, or just spending some time with my family.
So you replaced the unhealthy habit with a healthier one that still gave you that sense of relaxation.
Exactly. Okay, so we've tackled the trigger. But what about the action itself? How can we make it easier to break a bad habit?
Well, remember how Eyal talked about reducing friction to encourage action?
Make it easy to do the things we want to do.
Right. So when it comes to breaking a habit, we can flip that.
Make it harder to do the things we don't want to do.
You got it. If your goal is to spend less time on social media Maybe log out of all those apps so you have to re-enter your password every time.
That extra step can be a real deterrent.
Or if you're trying to curb online shopping, remove your saved credit card information from your browser.
Make it as inconvenient as possible.
Exactly. The more friction you create, the less likely you are to indulge in that bad habit.
All right, let's talk about the reward, because even bad habits often have some sort of payoff.
This is where things get interesting. Sometimes it's not enough to just remove the reward. You need to reframe how you think about it.
What do you mean?
Let's say you're trying to quit sugary drinks.
Okay.
Instead of focusing on the initial satisfaction of that sweet taste, think about the long-term consequences.
The energy crashes, the health risks.
Exactly. You shift your focus from the immediate gratification to the bigger picture.
So it's about changing my perspective, not just trying to ignore the reward.
And you can also try to replace unhealthy rewards with healthier ones.
So if I'm craving that sugary drink, maybe I reach for a piece of fruit instead.
You're still getting that sense of satisfaction, but in a way that supports your goals.
All right, last piece of the puzzle, investment. How can we use that when breaking bad habits?
This one can feel counterintuitive, but sometimes those sunk costs, the time, money, effort you've already put in can actually be a motivator.
How so?
Think about it this way. If you've spent years building a bad habit, shouldn't all that experience count for something?
It seems like it would be a waste to just give up now.
Exactly. So instead of seeing those past investments as a reason to continue the bad habit, reframe them as a reason to break free.
So all that time and effort I wasted can actually fuel my desire for change.
Precisely. And here's the really cool part. We can use this same framework, the hook model, to build good habits.
So it's not just about breaking the bad stuff. It's about creating those positive loops that lead to lasting change.
Exactly. Let's say you want to make daily exercise a habit.
Okay.
Start by choosing a specific time of day, a trigger, that you can anchor this new habit to.
Make it part of my routine.
And then make the action itself as easy as possible. Lay out your workout clothes, have your favorite playlist ready to go.
Remove those barriers to entry.
And focus on the reward. What do you enjoy about exercise? That post-workout energy boost, the sense of accomplishment.
I love that feeling of knowing I did something good for myself.
Savor those positive feelings and let them reinforce the habit.
And don't forget about investment. Maybe track your progress. Find a workout buddy for accountability.
You got it. The more you invest in your new habit, the more valuable it becomes, and the more likely you are to stick with it.
This has been such a fascinating journey, going from the mechanics of habit-forming products to practical strategies for shaping our own behavior.
It's a reminder that we have more control than we think.
That we can understand these forces that influence us and use that knowledge to create the lives we want.
And Hooked is a fantastic guidebook for that journey.
Absolutely. So if you're ready to start hacking your own habits, for better or worse, Nir Eyal's Hooked, How to Build Habit-Forming Products is definitely worth a read.
And remember, the journey of habit change is ongoing. It takes experimentation, persistence,
And a willingness to learn and grow.
Exactly. So keep diving deep and happy habit hacking.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.